Thanks very much for attending our webinar today. Today's focus is on a deep dive into firewall as a service and protecting remote workers, but it's also going to be a very heavy focus on moving your security to zero trust. The nice thing about firewall as a service is it can provide dual duties, kind of a solution like that, where you can add zero trust to the other security features that you can get from firewall as a service. We're going to talk about that here today. We have two sets of speakers. I will be one of them. I'm Tom Ruffolo. I'm a CISA at eSecurity Solutions, and we work with one of the vendors we work with very, very closely is WatchGuard. From WatchGuard, we have Bill Munroe, who's Director of Product Marketing, and also Ryan Poutre, who is a product manager at WatchGuard. And so we will have both of them speaking on from WatchGuard. So the topic today will be, we will talk generally about cloud security. I will introduce the topic. We want to talk about how to enhance remote worker security and why you would do that and what the implications are. Bill and Ryan are going to talk about cloud asset threats and firewalls as a service and zero trust, and do a deep dive. These are the three areas that generally companies we talk about in the security industry in terms of protecting cloud assets, right? So assets sounds like it's not very important, or it sounds very generic. So if you make it real, then you got private and public cloud, and your data goes into the server. It goes into the cloud with your servers. The AWS, Google, Microsoft do not protect your data. That's your job, and that's part of the shared responsibility model. Remote workers, we're going to talk about that pretty much primarily today, and then applications in the cloud. We're not going to talk about that, but with your applications all moving into the cloud, or mostly your data's there too, that control, getting visibility into who's using it and how they use it is very important. And I think it's just a matter of time before we all agree that that's something we need to be protecting as well. The problem with moving everything into the cloud is that it's easier to attack than harder to protect, and there are more attack targets. So if that doesn't intuitively sound like something we ought to be putting some attention on, I don't know how to do a better job. The one slide I want to put up related to remote workers is this: when we talk about remote workers, I think a lot of times we're thinking about protecting the remote workers. Like, well, how much energy do we need to put into protecting somebody sitting at their home office? And that's actually kind of the opposite of what really is what we're trying to do here. You've got about 3 reasons to try to focus on protecting the company. And it's more about protecting the company than protecting the home office. The company needs its corporate data, which is in corporate servers, and it might be public and private cloud. It could be at your home headquarters. You want to protect your cloud assets, your applications and data, and you also want to limit the type of access that customers have to data and what they can do with it. So if your employees can access the data, do you want them to store it on their home computers? Do you want them to be able to store it into their own cloud? These are things that we need to think about as employers. Then lastly, we need to protect the home user, and no reason not to do that, but that's not the primary reason to spend incremental dollars. And the tools that we have available to do that center around zero trust, ZTNA, zero trust network, DLP, firewalls as a service, and secure web gateway as a service. These are things that we get. Some of them we get from a regular firewall if you happen to have a firewall in every home, which most people don't. But ZTNA is a new solution which provides you that granular control of the users and how they access the data. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ryan, who's going to lead from the WatchGuard side, and they're going to present as a tag team the WatchGuard point of view on this and the deep dive.
All right, thanks for having us join today. Again, my name is Ryan Poutre. I'm a product manager for the WatchGuard team. My primary focus is around our SASE offering, a new product we're bringing to market called FireCloud. And I'm joined by Bill. Bill is on our marketing team, and he's primarily helping with our go-to-market strategies and all of our marketing around not only SASE, but other products within WatchGuard's portfolio. So today, what I really wanted to do, and you're going to hear a lot of overlap from what I'm talking about to what Tom kind of led in with Zero Trust and networks evolving and changing the way that our organizations provide access to their employees. But really what I wanted to start with was kind of the problem, because as IT administrators, everything we do is we solve problems. And so the problem is security needs to adapt to our new business models. The traditional network perimeter that we used to maintain no longer is sufficient to protect the way that organizations want to work and allow their employees to work. So this new idea of hybrid and on-premise remote work is really a challenge for our IT administrators to provide sufficient protections for their employees and for their data and their organizations. We're also continuing to see an explosion in the public cloud use. So public cloud is going to be like Microsoft, moving applications to the cloud like Salesforce or other applications that used to be something running on a server in your organization and is now in the cloud. As part of these changes, the threat landscape is also exploding. As you can imagine, bad guys used to try to get into your office through the firewall or through a phishing email, but now they've got the cloud they can get into to get to your data, your email, which is in the cloud, your remote workers. They still can try to get to your office through the firewall or through a backdoor and some software. So they just have a lot more options to try to complete their mission of either stealing data or harming an organization. And remote workers protection is really a weak link. We saw a huge rise in remote workers during COVID. And like Tom said, it kind of stuck. And when that started, everybody was in a hurry to allow their employees to work from home, get access to the resources they need so that their organization could keep functioning. But the real good security and visibility into what they're doing, what data they're getting access to, was really overlooked by a lot of organizations. And so this solution is going to help kind of fix all these things. And it's really how, not only how to keep your users secure, but how to keep your organization secure, like Tom was saying earlier. So when we talk about the evolving business threats, these threats are not new. These threats are just, there's more ways that the bad guys can leverage these different vectors to get into your organization and get data. Things like risky user activity, downloading infected files, ignoring your VPN requirements or your policies that the organization sets, falling victim to phishing attacks. All these things are a little more risky with remote workers because they're not sitting in an office where the IT person can roam around and help people. Now they're home working. If they get an email pop-up that they're a little suspicious about, it's a lot more work to submit a request or to report it and then wait to get feedback, back from an IT administrator to help them. So while it's not impossible to do, it does make it a little more challenging just to interact with your users and prevent this risky activity. The second one we've talked about a little bit already, but these different threat vectors. So when your users are out roaming around, working from home, working from a coffee shop, now things like wireless attacks become a real problem for users. Malicious payloads that can be injected through websites, capturing credentials, packet sniffing, and phishing key logging, Trojans, VPN hijacking, all things that we used to always have to deal with. But again, with remote workers and spreading your applications out across the cloud, there's just more areas we have to prevent all of these threat vectors from affecting. And the last one is not so much a threat, but it could lead to one, is around poor user experience and high costs. So employees get frustrated all the time. I know I always do when you have to turn on a VPN to get access to a service. And when I don't need access to that service, I probably am not running my VPN. It slows down my computer, it's a pain in the butt, all these different reasons why. But when you're not connected to your VPN, you're not secured through that firewall or through that application that is protecting that remote worker. The other one is around frustration and lack of visibility into the risks and the threats that these remote workers are seeing. So if you have a remote worker, they're not connected to the VPN because it slows down their computer. Now you don't have data to show when an infection showed up. How did it show up? What is it doing on all of these things? And so kind of poor user experience for the administrator, also a poor user experience for the user. And attackers are really using these compromised remote machines for the opportunity to get back and get into your corporate network when those devices come back inside the perimeter that you have set. So if we kind of look back, and I really want to jump into the evolution of network design here for a minute. Traditionally, network administrators kind of call this the good old days. We had one way in the network and one way out. You had the firewall. You put a nice big fence around your office and the applications and the services that you're using and all your users were inside this nice gated fence. And our job as administrators was to keep the bad guys out of the fence, which was primarily done by your firewall, maybe setting your wireless up correctly to make sure that they can't get on the wireless, things like that. And then we also had tools to protect our users when they were reaching outside of our perimeter. So things like web blocker and application control, et cetera, would make sure that users can't get themselves into trouble. But around a little before COVID, things are starting to slowly move this way, but COVID really accelerated this transition. Applications moving to the cloud. The cloud started to become affordable for organizations to move applications there, and the performance really made it a value to the organization to move to the cloud because it's always available, easily accessible, and now was affordable. We also started seeing this rise in the mobile user VPNs. And so what traditionally we would do is we would take these users, we would connect them to a branch office or a mobile user VPN. We would have them connect back to the firewall and gain access to resources that they needed. Maybe it was a service, a printer, remote desktop, whatever it may be. When they're connected to the VPN, we continue to provide service through like a zero route tunnel for things like web blocker and application control. And this worked pretty good for a while because we were still very in the mindset of having a perimeter. All of the remote workers traffic came back in and then we let it go back out. And so we were still really focused on keeping the bad guys out of our fence with that single way in and that single way out. What the world is evolving to is something more like this. There is no perimeter. The users and the devices now have their own security perimeters that we have to manage, keeping the bad guys away from our devices, no matter where they're located in the world. Protecting our cloud applications, like Tom said, you may use Microsoft, you may use AWS or Google. It's not their primary focus to protect you. You still need to put some protection in place for that. We still need to provide that security for the user. So things like web blocker and application control to keep those users secure and kind of from themselves, from what they're choosing to do. And so this is the new kind of long-term vision of what a network might look like. So when WatchGuard started building our SASE solution, our FireCloud product, this is what we were looking at is networks are going this way. We need a solution that can scale and provide a perimeter for every device and every application on the network. What we found very quickly, though, was that you can't just jump from a perimeter to a device-based security solution. There's got to be something in between for two reasons. One, a lot of organizations just aren't ready to make that jump all at once. It's a big jump for administrators, for users, for financial reasons. It's a big jump. But for the second, kind of the second side is we still need to protect what's inside our network. So it could be things like IoT devices, printers, your wireless network, even things like TVs or refrigerators that have connections to the internet still need to be protected. So what WatchGuard kind of shifted, and we are designing, and we designed FireCloud to be more of a hybrid solution to kind of support a really good mix of on-prem security and also remote workers with a lot of flexibility built into the product. I quit moving my mouse. Here we go. So when we built FireCloud, SASE has a few very distinct requirements to be a SASE solution. It has to be cloud-based. It has to be high-performing. So WatchGuard built a worldwide network of what we call POPs, or points of presence. They're always on. They're always available, high performing. They're built in AWS, multi-tenant, data planes that your users are connecting to provide security and access to the internet, applications, and resources that they're provided access to. This is really important because this is what's really the difference between doing a VPN to a firewall and doing FireCloud when it comes to performance. Our POPs around the world will provide much better performance for that user, get rid of that excuse for them to not use the VPN and be provided that security, and also take a lot of the load off of your corporate firewall and your demands on your internet connection. To kind of dive a little bit deeper in the way this works. So FireCloud uses a VPN technology called WireGuard. It's a new, very high performing VPN solution. So the user connects with a FireCloud tunnel to our POPs. And within our POPs, we run these EC2 instances with services running in them. One of the services is our connection, our VPN terminator. We have service proxy services running. One of the really cool things and a big differentiator for WatchGuard's products is our FireCloud product runs all the same security services as our firewall. So if you have a firewall in place today and you run web blocker and application control and IPS and APT blocker, you can run all those exact same services in FireCloud. But they're all cloud hosted, managed by WatchGuard and running in these virtual instances. So that traffic will flow through our services, then it'll egress out to the internet. If you have private resources, your traffic will come in. We'll determine if that traffic is destined for the internet or if it's destined for a private resource, and we'll route that traffic accordingly through our POPs. One of the ways that we keep our performance really high is your users will always connect to a POP that is closest to them. So your data will always reside in your country that you choose. So if you're a US user, your data will always reside in the US regions. but your user will always connect to the POP that's closest to where they're getting access to the internet, keeping that internet access really, really fast for your users while still providing that high level of security. WireGuard's a really cool technology where it actually allows you to build multiple tunnels. So if your user is requesting access to a resource that maybe is across the world, what we'll do is we'll build a VPN connection to the POP nearest the user so they can get internet access really fast. We'll also build a VPN tunnel to a POP that has your private resources connected to it. At this point, the agent running on your machine will determine what tunnel that traffic needs to run through to get access to either the internet or to that private resource that you configured within FireCloud. So these are some of the differences between having a SASE solution with FireCloud and having like a mobile VPN running just on a firewall at your office. Another big differentiator for WatchGuard and our products is our integrations we're building throughout our portfolio. So FireCloud, one of my favorite integrations for FireCloud is if you have a WatchGuard firewall, now it's got to run the right version of fireware when it's ready, but it can be used to expose resources into FireCloud. So if you've got a SQL server, a remote desktop, and a printer that you want your remote workers to have access to, and you already have a WatchGuard firewall, it's really simple. You set it up as the FireCloud gateway, you expose those resources behind the firewall to your remote workers, and away you go. So it's a very simple addition to your security stack, and it's very, very simple to set up. Two of the other really exciting integrations are with our ThreatSync Core. So our ThreatSync Core product uses all of our threat telemetry from all of our products, correlates that information, and provides kind of a report and actions that you can take across the security stack to mitigate threats in your network. The third integration is with our ThreatSync Plus NDR. NDR is our network detection and response product that you can get from WatchGuard now. And it really uses AI and machine learning to detect network anomalies based on your traffic flows. So this is going to be a big differentiator for WatchGuard as well. We are sending all of our traffic information from our remote workers into our NDR, which will also be collecting your network telemetry. And we're going to be able to use all that information to get a really good picture of what's going on your network, what kind of threats we may be able to detect or head off before that the threat can actually be executed in the network. And then finally, all of this is managed and reported from one single dashboard. So not only FireCloud, but your Firebox, your Wi-Fi, WatchGuard's endpoint products, ThreatSync and ThreatSync Plus NDR are all available to be managed from one central place in WatchGuard Cloud. And so just to kind of touch on Zero Trust, because I know Tom talked about Zero Trust a couple times, and I get a lot of questions from customers about, well, does FireCloud replace my VPN? And why do I have to pay for FireCloud when you provide free VPN access in your firewall? So the answer is yes, it can replace your firewall VPN. And you do get a lot of really good value by moving to a FireCloud, kind of our private access VPN solution. So in a traditional VPN, it's traditionally all or nothing. So a lot of our customers will say, Ryan has VPN access back to the network, and anything in the network he can get access to. That's not Zero Trust. We also don't do things like geo or time-based access controls. We have little control over the agent running on the machine. So like I said, when I want to connect to the VPN, I can, but if I don't want to, I don't have to. And then there's a lot of complexity in configuring and managing kind of traditional VPNs. So in my opinion, traditional VPNs are insufficient to protect a true network that's got a desire to be zero trust. So FireCloud, it really can give you that zero trust approach to providing access to your customers. We provide conditional access over the controls and what data you can get access to. We do geo-based access controls, time-based access controls. We do identity and device controls. We validate the user information and the device information continuously. We have tamper-resistant agents. We eliminate the need for the local firewall VPN connection, taking some of that burden off your network, the internet connection and the firewall that you have at your corporate office. We have a much easier deployment and management options with FireCloud than a traditional VPN, and we offer kind of an always-on option. So once your user connects for the first time, they will always connect automatically after that first time. So it takes away that option for the user to disconnect from the security. And so FireCloud really is solving a lot of today's challenges, providing that better user experience for a user. So let's jump to a quick demo. So this is WatchGuard Cloud. Again, in here you can configure and manage all of our products from WatchGuard. Today we're going to focus on FireCloud. So within the interface here, kind of the first step is we're going to configure our authentication. Within the authentication, we provide a couple of different options. You can use the WatchGuard Cloud directory where you configure and manage your users directly in WatchGuard Cloud. The WatchGuard Cloud directly does only support non-MFA users today, but we are adding in an MFA option here soon. The other option is an integration through SAML. So if you have Active Directory, Entra ID, Google Workspace, AuthPoint from WatchGuard, or other authentication authorities that you want to integrate, and as long as they support SAML, we can use this option to configure that authentication, and it will pull those users in to FireCloud so that you can use those to configure your policies. On the main configuration page, here's where we can configure our content scanning, our gateway antivirus, our APT blocker. You can configure your network blocking, botnet, IPS, block sites, and block ports. You can configure exceptions. In your exceptions, you can select from things like block sites, botnet, APT, anything that you may need to make an exception for in your policies. We can also configure things like geolocation blocking, which is very similar to the firewall if you've ever seen it, but you can come through, select which countries you don't want to allow traffic to or from, and we'll block that connection. You can also configure your content filtering. Within content filtering, we have web blocker. We're going to be blocking URLs. So this is really one of the services that's designed to protect that user. Maybe you want to block things like security or bandwidth or violence or adult material. Can do that here in web blocker. You can also configure application control in here. So things like tunneling and proxy services, peer-to-peer networks, instant messenger. Maybe you want to block social media. You can do that here through your application control. You also configure DNS servers, and then you configure access rules. And so in an access rule, what you're going to do is you enable the rule, you give it a name, you select what user group this rule is going to be applied for. There are some additional settings in here you can turn on. So you can say, I want to allow the user to manually disconnect from FireCloud. By default, the user will not be able to disconnect, but you can allow them to if that is your choice. The second setting is around making sure that we display the right language for your browsers. This is really designed more for kind of the European countries where they speak multiple languages, and then based on the POP they're connected to, they may get the wrong language back in their browsers, but could become useful for things like when you're traveling, if you're an international traveler. Inside here, we can select what content filtering policy we want to use. We can select what geolocation policies we want to use. And we can enable our content scanning. From there, the full rule is configured and ready to be deployed to your computer. So here under client downloads, you can come in for this Windows client. You can copy the installation URL, send it through an email or through Teams or however you want to send that URL to the user, or you can download the installer directly to the computer from the link. So this is my computer running FireCloud. When you install it, what you will get is a WatchGuard Connection Manager is the name of our agent. It'll show a connection status. It'll also see there's logs, there's some settings you can see, and some about and help topics in here. Users can browse the internet like normal, so they can go to google.com. But if they go to something that's blocked by a security service, they will get the deny page just like they do today in a WatchGuard firewall. These are kind of the whole process we just went through, gets you up and running, protecting those remote workers with the security solution. From a management perspective, we do provide some monitoring tools that you can use. So inside, again, of the WatchGuard Cloud, you can go to Monitor, Usage Reports. In this first report, you can see, I want to look at a time frame. You can see what users are connected to FireCloud, what is their status, what computer are they running, the operating systems. You can also go to the security dashboard. In the security dashboard, it will show you events. So there were blocked attacks, blocked malware, blocked 0 days, blocked URL categories, and so on. We can also see traffic reports, which will show you what kind of traffic people are using. File sharing services and services tools, web transfer, HTTP, Spotify, whatever it may be being used on that computer. It's going to show up in your traffic reports. We can also do license reports, so you can see how many licenses you have, how many are allocated to users, and when the last time they connected was. For more advanced users, we can also do log search, where we'll search kind of the raw logs for traffic. And this is a new interface that we built for FireCloud that I really like. You can come in here and you can actually just select what you want. So I want to see security services, APT blocker, and I want to source user to equal our Poutre, and it actually writes the search query for you. So you don't have to know how to write all these search queries to find the information that you want. When you hit search, it'll pull up the logs based off the search query that you configured. The last piece in the notification or monitor area is our alerts. So up here in this little bell, anytime that there's an event, you can turn on an alert. These alerts can be sent and stored in the dashboard. It can be sent to you via email as well. But you can see had an intrusion detection event. It's a critical event, and it gives you the information about that website. The service that caught it was my IPS service. You can click on that, it'll drill into a little bit more information. Then you can acknowledge that you saw the alert. So that's kind of the monitoring piece. We have a brand new part of this coming out in September, and I'm going to show that through a video real quick here because it's not available in our production environment yet. So this is going to be configuring private access, so providing resource access for remote workers. So in here, we're gonna, again, come into configure FireCloud. We configured our authentication in this example to the FireCloud or FireCloud user directory. We've got one user, one group. You can manage these users again by going in here. You can click on user, click add new user, provide the name, the information of that user, select what group they're in. We can enforce the MFA on there as well if you choose to do that. You can add the group, delete the group. The groups are what we're going to build those access policies off of that we just went through in the previous demo. So once this is all configured, going to go back, configuration, FireCloud, and we're going to probably point at all the different security services again that we just went through. But again, you can do content scanning. So here we're going to configure the private resources. So we're going to click on our private resources. We're going to add a gateway. And in our gateway options, we're going to have a firebox, the server gateway, or a virtual gateway, depending on the network setup that you run. Going to click next. Going to add our resources that are available behind that gateway. So here we're going to set up things like I have a remote desktop server. I have an application running. You provide a name, an FQDN, and the internal IP address of the resource, along with the port and protocol you want to allow through that policy. In this example, we're going to do SMB, on SMB ports. Click save. And then kind of shows you what you set up. Now in the access rule that we configured before, we're going to actually provide access to the IT and network admins group. We're going to provide access to that resource we created, private access tab, and we're going to enable content filtering. So we do bidirectional scanning on the resources. We're going to add the resource that we created here, that SMB share server. And we're going to click save it again. And now that admin rule is for the IT network admins is going to have access to that Seattle SMB share. So really, really simple to set up those access to those private resources. Also very simple to set up all of the security services for those remote workers as well. So for the next couple minutes here, I'm going to turn it over to Bill. Bill's going to talk about a case study that we have with a customer that's deploying FireCloud out to their organization. So Bill.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, you can push me over there. So this is a customer who's rolled out the FireCloud Internet Access version that Ryan talked about. And I thought this was an interesting example because it represents a lot of the shift in the market around how we deploy our network and how we operate our businesses. That again we've covered in the webinar. So this is a national restaurant brand owner, right? From they were founded in 1971. It's a family-owned business. They own 6 major restaurant brands in multiple locations. There's actually 172 different restaurant locations for all of those 6 brands. They have literally tens of thousands of employees across all those restaurants, but they're primarily chefs and cooks and sous chefs and servers. There are 80 core employees who work corporate, and then there's a core employee who's the business manager of each one of those restaurants. The challenges that this company faced, as you can imagine, if you have clients or you are in the restaurant business, COVID was brutal, and everyone had to shift around how they operated, and make sure they were online and make sure that they could deliver to homes, ultimately get outdoor dining and open dining. All of those things happened to this company. As the COVID restrictions were eased, though, this company noticed in their regions less foot traffic, less people going out to eat. One of the reasons was not all of their places actually offered outside dining. Another was that a lot of these restaurant locations were in older buildings that were closed and tight. Some of them were very historic, but it just wasn't what their client was looking for. So after COVID, they spent a lot of money rebuilding, reorganizing how they operated. And they did it from how the restaurants looked and upgrades and outdoor dining to getting rid of and divesting of their primary office space, moving to 100% cloud environment. And because of all of that, they were spending a lot of money and budgets were tight. It was not going to be easy to put in expensive new cybersecurity systems nor hire new people. Those things were going to be a challenge. As important as they are, they just had to keep the business operating first. So as I talked about, one of the things the company did is because they got rid of most of their traditional brick and mortar office headquarters space, they went to 100% cloud environment. So that meant shifting what was a hybrid and primarily older on-prem systems like point of sale systems, SaaS ordering systems, their CRM system. They moved all of those to the cloud. Plus, they created new cloud online ordering and delivery systems. All of these were really deemed important to their competitive effectiveness. So that meant they had to shift how their IT and their cybersecurity really operated from the core on down. And the first was, moving to all these cloud systems. As a matter of fact, so these guys were Firebox users and they were EPDR endpoint, WatchGuard endpoint users, and other products, of course. And in the end, they shipped it out of all of them. The only thing that remained from what they looked like pre-COVID was using WatchGuard endpoint protection, our EPDR product. And really one of the big things they realized is they had to go out and create a world where all of those remote users were kind of wrapped with that same level of protection that they had when they came into the office. And Ryan talked about this notion of taking firewall as a service and all of the things that you have protecting your network and on-prem environment with a firewall, and literally wrapping every one of these individual users, whether they were of the 80 or whether they were the business managers at each of the restaurants, around with this sort of protection. And their core was to have an endpoint protection capability on that remote device, to have strong authentication on that remote device, and then to have this firewall as a service software gateway capability on that remote device. And so that's why they moved forward with our FireCloud product. The other thing that was really important to them is they realized when they moved all these users out to remote, all of the visibility they had of network traffic and what those users were doing and what was happening was lost. And the endpoint product does a wonderful job protecting from malware and attack, but it's not meant to be a network traffic monitoring tool, or in this case, an internet and cloud traffic monitoring tool. And that's another reason why FireCloud was so important. They wanted that visibility. And then the final piece was a lot of their restaurants fall into states with very aggressive privacy laws. I think some of you probably are aware. California, New York, some other places have put in some pretty strong GDPR type privacy requirements. They had to show proof that the data that was moving through these restaurants and these remote environments about their clients and customers, about their payment systems, that all of that was protected. And so having the reporting and the visibility that Ryan showed you in the demo was critically important. So these guys ran out, they've only been running it now for a few months, but they ran out FireCloud and they're super happy with it. And why? What were the things that really made it important to them? Well, one is that it really fit their use case. They weren't forced to buy a lot of capability that they didn't want. And they didn't have the bandwidth or the funds to do that. So they needed something that really solved this specific remote worker use case and wrapping those users with this firewall as a service, software gateway kind of service right around them. The next was because they were old Firebox users and they are EPDR users, they understood the WatchGuard cloud. They understood how our firewall policies and controls work. And again, as you watch the demo, it should have been very apparent if you're familiar with it. It works almost exactly the same. So it was very simple for them to get this deployed, to get all of the policies they wanted up and running, and to be operating and confident in protecting all these users. The third piece was the visibility, right? So now they could actually see what was happening with all these remote users and make sure that the policies and controls that they were putting in place around what was open access, what wasn't, what websites were blocked off, what sort of threat intelligence were they getting, was all there, right? And at that data movement and website level and internet access control, they had that sort of visibility and protection. And then finally was the reporting, right? The reporting was critical for the compliance side of the house, and they were able to put together and show the reports that allowed them to stay relevant and concurrent with the privacy laws, with PCI, with the things that they needed to operate their business. Their RT guy, really nice guy, and he spent time talking with me. His thing was, look, you guys were on budget, on time, and it was kind of the missing piece of the puzzle. We didn't know, we had seen SASE type products, but that they were quite complex and expensive, and we didn't realize something like this existed, and it worked really well. And I think it's a great use case or a case study because it kind of shows how businesses are shifting and how this FireCloud type of solution is going to be so important going forward.
I just wanted to show one slide about eSecurity solutions. Many of you are customers, but just so you know, our goal, we provide 3 basic services and solutions for our customers. And the goal is to be able to provide one-stop cybersecurity for your business. That's the thing that I want to leave behind is the one-stop solution. We provide GRC services, which include risk assessments, risk management, compliance, security products from companies like WatchGuard, and then MDR and managed security solutions as well. And our goal is to be able to service and work with companies regardless of what your goals are, whether it's compliance focused or just strong security or basic security. We want to tailor solutions for you and your company. Again, we work with a lot of different vendors, most of the major vendors, WatchGuard being a really close partner that we've worked with for a very long time. And in terms of follow-up and next steps for firewall as a service or SASE or securing your cloud assets, we'd love to have a discussion with you about your situation and understand what your needs are and where you're at, and then have a discussion about what the right solutions are. If it's a WatchGuard firewall as a service, or where they're going with the next generation of that, or whatever it might be, or any other solution that you might need, we're here for you. And so we want to solve your problem. We're not going to tell you what you need. We're going to ask what you've got and where your goals are, and what your goals are, and then help you find a solution. Overall, we'd love to have the same kind of relationship with you. We want to be your single security solution partner. We want to help you. We can provide risk assessments. We can just have discussions on that. We can help define your goals and help define your priorities and your gaps, and the solutions that go with that, and then help you define a security roadmap, which is what you're going to do over the next 3, 6, 12 months, maybe 24 months even, and then help you implement and acquire, implement, and manage the solutions. Thank you very much for attending today. We want to help you on your journey. That's the message that we really want to leave behind. And thank WatchGuard for doing their deep dive today, and look forward to doing another webinar for you soon, and on other topics that are of interest. So thank you very much. Have a great day and a great week.